Professor. How do you feel about this?
Welcome to Flip the Script, where we challenge the status quo in long-term care communities and dementia support from a fresh perspective. This podcast is brought to you by Aging Maine Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program and the Cedars, an older adult living community located right in the heart of Portland, Maine. And I'm your host today, Angie Hunt, Chief Innovation Officer at the Cedars and an older adult advocate. And today we're diving into a topic that can profoundly impact the lives of older adults that live in long-term care communities, loneliness. And it is recognized as one of the 3 nursing home plagues, a term developed by Dr. Bill Thomas, a renowned geriatrician and an advocate for elder care reform. And alongside boredom and helplessness, loneliness can significantly affect the lives of people living in long-term care residents. And today, I'm joined by 2 special guests, Brenda Gallant, the Executive Director of the State of Maine Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, and Heather Kidd, Household Coordinator at the London Memory Care Household at the Cedars. Heather, Brenda, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you both.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So I want to start by setting the stage, and I would like to pose the question to you first, Brenda. And can you explain what you think Dr. Bill Thomas meant by loneliness being a plague in nursing home, and why is this significant at all?
So as you know, Dr. Thomas really was a pioneer who really wanted to revolutionize nursing home care across the country. He recognized that nursing homes are really based on an institutional medical model, which can be very difficult for residents, for older and disabled adults that need nursing home care. When people move from their home into a nursing home, it's very challenging. They're moving from their home, their community, sometimes from family. Maine is a very rural state, for example. People may be separated from loved ones when they go into a nursing home. So it's a huge transition. And in that transition and in that model, people can really begin to feel lonely. Dr. Thomas talked about the 3 plagues: loneliness, boredom, helplessness. And so it's really important for staff to be focused on addressing the emotional and spiritual needs of residents. And that's what Dr. Thomas really focused on, was staff really recognizing that residents are people with emotional needs, that they need to feel connected to staff, engaged in meaningful activity, and that their emotional needs are addressed.
Yes, thank you. And is this something that's really prevalent in long-term care, do you think?
Yes, the Consumer Voice, which is a national advocacy group for nursing home residents, estimates that about 50% of residents in nursing homes experience loneliness. And I think based on the model that we see, it is very prevalent. And what we see as advocates, it is prevalent.
And Heather, in your experience day to day, working as a direct care worker, do you see this as an issue with people moving in and that transition and how that's really important to get staff, really involved with the resident to kind of combat what could happen?
I do. I do think that if any of us were to move out of our home, away from our immediate family, our immediate friends, I think we would all experience the same feelings of loneliness. And I think that as Brenda said, Bill Thomas, and we want folks to think of the residents as their equals, because they are. If you would have felt that, they feel that. And then
Sure.
There's the additional, as an older adult, there's the additional sense of loss that becomes, as you're aging, it does become part of your everyday life. And so that loss also can add to the feelings of loneliness and the depression that comes with it. Yeah.
So I'm putting my administrator hat on a little, but, when people move in like to the London Memory Care, are there ways that you mitigate that feeling of loneliness by, I think you do a life story and you really meet the people before. Can
Yes.
you talk a little about that process that you do?
Yes, we do. We do have the family members or the resident or a combination of both fill out the life story before they come to lender, so that we have our staff read over their life story before they get there, and they get to know the resident. And we look at like different preferences, hobbies, or whatever. I'll look through our bookshelves, see what I can find that might interest them if they love horses, or we'll look through, at the activities and highlight activities that might have something to do with something in their life story. And as they move in, we try to, sit them with a resident who might be able to engage them and really make them feel special and welcome, and the families as well. It's a hard time for them to
Sure.
do, so.
Sure. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, Brenda, what do you think some of the causes of this loneliness, or what are some of the signs of loneliness? Like, if I was a direct care worker, what would be some of the things I should be alerted to?
Well, I'm sorry. It's a little fast answer, but I think just really paying attention. What does the resident express to the worker? What do they say about their feelings? Do they have visitors? Are they involved in activities? Do they interact with other residents? It's really kind of observing if they're withdrawn, if they seem sad, if they seem depressed. It's really just being observant and really listening to their answers and trying to get to know them, who they were before they were admitted to the facility, and how are they feeling now that they're admitted there and living there.
Yes. And sometimes I even think that, empowering the resident, really honoring those preferences and their routines, really gives them that control and gets them that engagement and participation, and their, keeping their autonomy. And because that's something that can easily be lost and, kind of gobbled up with institutional care. That's why it's so important to be person-centric, I think. But, sometimes the family role can be positive or negative in some cases. So, what are your feelings about family and how family could help reduce loneliness, or sometimes a family could exacerbate that? Can we have any insights on that?
Well, when families visit, it's usually a very positive experience. When they go to leave, that might be where the negative, the negative aspect of that visit comes into place. And you want the staff members to be trained to strategize, so that, like, if a family member says, and this is in memory care specifically, but I think that it could also apply to a regular assisted living. But, the family member is going to leave, and there needs to be kind of a transition time. So you might ask them, why don't you leave like right before lunch, and then we'll bring them to the lunch table. And that way there'll kind of be something else that they're doing, so they don't really think about that you left, and they won't focus on that. Walking them to the door with someone, then asking, hey, Susie, can you come with me? I wanted to show you this thing. And kind of the staff member come alongside, so that the family members, that the resident's not left there standing, waving alone. That's just having a companion, a staff member, come alongside them and kind of transition them, redirect them and re-engage them into something else. That kind of takes care. For me, what my observation has been is that really helps with that negative aspect of the family member leaving. But always come. Always come. I've had, just friends of people with dementia say, well, do they really realize that I was here? They'll forget. And I believe thoroughly that the emotional aspect of the visit, those good feelings, last far beyond sometimes the memory of the actual visit.
Sure.
But the resident that they're visiting will feel that visit for a few hours after, and they're in a better place. And we have observed that, and more talkative, more engaging. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the visit itself, but it opens up something inside them, those emotions from having that family member or friend visit. And that's important as well. Just knowing that, yes, in my case, in memory care, a person with dementia, the visits are important, and they do make a difference in loneliness.
Right. Yeah. I do agree, especially people living with dementia, that emotional connection. They have a very good emotional memory.
Yes.
And that's important to acknowledge that, I think. In your perspective, Brenda, anything about families and how it's a positive or could be a negative?
Well, I think that visiting residents really, really important. And when your loved one goes into a facility, not stepping away from them, but remaining engaged, being in contact, making phone calls in between visits, honoring their wishes, being involved in their care plan if the resident is agreeable to that, supporting their decisions, and just really being consistent in terms of contact and visitation. I think it becomes difficult if a family member doesn't listen to the resident's wishes or acts in opposition to their wishes, then it can become very difficult. But I think the more support that residents have, the better their transition will be, and the more they feel they're not forgotten and they're still continue to be loved is really important.
Yeah, and I think in a previous conversation we had, you talked about a resident and connecting people within the community could be a great way to, alleviate loneliness too. Could you talk about that individual that I think did some reading project?
Oh, thank you for remembering that. So years ago, a nursing home called me, the staff, and said, we have a resident and she complains a lot, and we just don't know what to do. We feel like we respond to the complaints, but there are more complaints. She seems really unhappy. So I went in and spent about 45 minutes talking with her, and she told me that she had lost contact at some point with her children, and that was a really painful thing for her. So I was thinking about, what I could do to help. And I suggested to the social worker that wouldn't it be great if this woman, who was alert and oriented and well able to do this, could go to a local school and just read with the students just once a week or whatever schedule could be arranged. I never thought this would happen. And I learned later that the social worker did do this, and it made a huge difference for this resident. She was younger. She was feeling lonely. She didn't have any family support. And so she could use the skills that she had to make the children happy and to feel more fulfilled and engaged. So that was a wonderful outcome, I thought.
Yeah, that's a great success story. And today with the technology being so incredible, Heather, any experiences with technology and combating loneliness with technology? And have you had any experience with using iPads to connect people? And
yeah, especially starting with COVID, that
Right.
was the lifeline: iPads and family Zooms and that such this. So the staff would set it up, maybe sit alongside, maybe the resident could just do the conversation on their own. But that was huge in connecting with sons, daughters, grandchildren. Along the same lines. If the resident can still read to the kids to read to their grandkids a story over technology. It's definitely something that, even though we kind of did more of it out of necessity during COVID, it's something that has stayed a really good tool. And the staff make it happen. There's also, folks who are shut in, so they can't go to church anymore if they worship on a Sunday, and we are able to connect them with their church services. And it's beautiful. Technology can be used in a beautiful way to
and
help.
it's so easily available now. Like an iPad is not too expensive.
No.
Or to provide that kind of programming for older adults. And I know during COVID at the Cedars, we also had a program with University of Southern Maine, and it was a 3 college credit program where students would actually befriend. They were behavioral health students, and they actually befriended
Wonderful.
the residents weekly and had weekly conversations with them throughout the whole semester. And I know that was, and we tried to identify residents that didn't, have family that contacted them frequently. So I think that helped a little, but it's another creative way to use technology today. Do you have any observations about technology,
Well,
Brenda?
just to echo what you had to say, I think when residents are able to utilize it, it's definitely a benefit. But also, I just want to point out, I think bringing the community in to a nursing home is really, really helpful. I know of the University of New England, medical students go out and meet with residents, and the resident tells them their life stories. What a magnificent program that is. And I know a resident that was participating in this program, and she would wait, for the next semester to come. And she was so excited to meet those students, and she would just talk about her life. And so that was really an opportunity to remember, to feel engaged, to feel respected, and then the students really benefited by it. So those kinds of programs are really amazing and can benefit both sides. So I love to see that.
Yes. We also do a great program, Opening Minds Through Art,
That's
which has a
beautiful.
professional artist with it. And the students come in for a semester and they meet with their elder teacher, we call the older adult, an elder teacher, and they create these incredible art projects. They're just tremendous. But the thing is that the older adult gets to give back to the community. And I think that's an important aspect in long-term care. A lot of times we're
The
giving a lot of the
reciprocity,
care.
yeah.
It's an opportunity for them to give back to the community, and I think that helps fulfill people a lot.
It is, and I mean, with a sense, there's a sense of value there. With loneliness, we feel that we've been left behind, we've been left out. And when we bring folks to have a relationship with residents, and there's a reciprocity there, there's a true equality, and they can sense that. The resident can sense that, and it blesses the person, like you said, it blesses the students, the person coming in.
Sure.
It's not a one-way street.
Yeah.
We're all part of a community.
Absolutely. It takes a village.
Takes a village.
Village. I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. So do you have any advice, both of you? I'll just open up this open-ended question. Any advice for direct care workers on helping alleviate loneliness for them?
Go ahead, Brenda.
Well, so in our work with direct care workers, what we've learned is that they choose this work because they want to do something that makes a difference. They want to do something meaningful. And what really is more meaningful than helping people when they need care? So I think for the workers, what I would say is the more that they can be connected to residents, the better they're going to feel about the work that they do every day. So it's not just the physical care, but really the emotional and spiritual aspects of care. So taking a moment to just listen to a resident, to learn about the residents, who they were before years ago and when they came into the facility, and really connecting with them, listening, showing a caring attitude, and then receiving it from the resident. I think those are really critical things. And again, encouraging them to be engaged. And if they see them withdrawing, really looking at trying to find the cause and what is the remedy, and really talking with their supervisors and the other CNAs about this will make a big difference.
Great. Anything to add to that, Heather?
Yes, to add to that, to build on that, I would also say that for the leadership to look for opportunities to provide that time for the staff. Very often, direct care workers become task-centered because there is a lot to do. If it's in a model where you have to do the laundry and you got to do a little bit of the kitchen, there's a lot, or a little bit of the cooking. There's a lot to do, and I think that leadership has to be able to look and say, "Hey, we need to provide some balance there," because if you want folks to really have that opportunity to do what they came to do. They came into this business because they wanted to do something with older adults. You've got to provide it, because they could soon be swimming in tasks, that overwhelm them, and then they lose out on those opportunities every day to catch a resident who might be looking at a picture of their mother. So instead of being able to take the time to ask, they've got to run off and do a task. So I think that we really need to provide, as leaders, we really need to provide the educational tools, but also the time that it takes for them to make that connection. Because 9 chances out of 10, when you're talking to a direct care worker, there's a reason that they came into this line of work, and you want to foster that in their hearts and lives so that those relationships they have with the resident are real, are genuine, are something that enriches both of their lives. But you got to provide them the time. Time's the tool they need. Yeah.
Right.
And training.
And sometimes being person-centric allows you that time, because not everybody wakes up at the same time. And if you honor all these preferences, it kind of builds some of that time in there. Though it's sometimes hard to believe that's true, but it really does. The other thing too, Heather, if I'm a direct care worker, are there any resources or anything that you have that you would tell them to look at or they could access to learn more about loneliness?
Yeah, I definitely would say to go to I would go to the Eden Alternatives website. I would look at some of the things that Bill Thomas has written, and he has YouTube videos that are tearjerkers. He just had such a heart. He has such a heart for folks. Just to watch Bill Thomas. Also, the National Institute of Aging. If you get on their website and use the search word loneliness, you're going to get yourself some resources, and AARP too. And then just to really focus on learning more about how you and as a care worker in your environment can provide the person-centered care that everyone talks about. In order to really provide it, there's some training that has to take place. It's just not natural. And when you have to juggle tasks within a limited amount of time, and you have a certain amount of residents that you need to work with, you got to have some strategy. You have to work through your day. How am I going to because the tasks are essential. You need to help them brush their teeth. You need to help them use the bathroom. You need to help them wash their laundry. Those tasks are essential, but they shouldn't have to be the focus. But you got to strategize. You got to use your time wisely, and you got to use your energy wisely, so you have the wherewithal to catch a resident in that moment and have that conversation, that hot cup of tea with them, whatever it is that the both of you can gel and connect on. So.
That's great. Thank you for that. So I want to end this podcast, but I have one last big question, okay? And I want to pose it to you, Brenda. Aren't you lucky one, huh? So how do you see the future of long-term care communities evolving to better address this issue? What do you think? I think you've seen lots of communities now throughout Maine. How can we better, do better for the residents and combat this thing called loneliness?
Okay. Well, I think it's through education and emphasis. And I think COVID, as terrible as it was, as terrible as the pandemic was, especially on residents in nursing homes, it's also been an opportunity for us to look at how we can do better. So my first suggestion would be we need to provide a sufficient number of staff because, as you said, we are very task-oriented. We need to give the CNAs enough time to talk with residents, to get to know residents, to participate in activities with them and support them, because they really become the most important people in their lives when you think about it, their daily lives. They're very meaningful. I'm hoping that the physical buildings will change from the long corridors and maybe the smaller group settings that are more home-like. I think that will make a difference. Private rooms, I think, will make a difference. I think we'll be seeing more people staying home longer and supporting family caregivers just to keep their loved ones at home. But then again, when people need nursing home care, making sure that it's available and quality, and that we give the resources, the financial resources, to support the best model of care, and really focusing on, as we are now in Maine, on reimbursement that reflects quality, and really looking at how we can elevate the care that is given to residents. So I think it's a work in progress. And I'm hoping, again, going into the future, that we'll look at all of these things and make the improvements that I've talked about.
Yeah, and the Ombudsman's office does a lot of work advocating for older adults. I know that you've been to the legislature many times to talk about person-centered care and also workforce development and the state of our workforce now. So thank you for those efforts. That's great. So thank you for joining us today as we explored the critical issue of loneliness in long-term care. So we hope our discussion had valuable insights, hope that we gave practical strategies to people. And I want to thank our guests. I want to thank you, Brenda and Heather, for sharing your insights and your experience today. So thank you very much for that. And to our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in with us today. We encourage you to continue learning, to continue sharing and advocating for the needs of older adults, your residents. Together, we could build a more inclusive and supportive environment where everyone feels valued and connected. And please stay tuned for our next podcast. We'll delve into another important topic aimed at improving the quality of life for the residents. And until then, take care and keep making a positive impact every day that you do at work. Stay informed and compassionate, and thank you very much.
Thank you.